Hey guys, Coach Adam with another bikini review and a bikini prediction. We have ourselves a huge bikini throwdown going on this weekend. This is one of the very few weekends where there is multiple shows like this in bikini with actually 4 pro bikini shows going on. So who are my predictions for these 4 bikini pro shows? Well, I'll go into that right now. Also going to review the Nevada State Championships and dive in a little bit into the Miami Pro Championships. Unfortunately, not a deep dive. There wasn't a lot of pictures available for that show. But I will go deep into the Nevada State. But first off, what you guys are here for, I'm sure, is what's going on this weekend in Pro Bikini. And we have 4 shows, as I said. We have the Shuru Classic in India. We have the DC Pro, which is always a throwdown. We have the Toronto Pro Show. And as always, one of my favorite shows from Denver, Colorado, the Mile High Pro, which Ashley's been to since the very beginning and will probably be there all the way to the very end of that pro bikini competition. I think it's been there since 2018. So let's go ahead and dive into these shows and what we're looking at this weekend. But there's going to be I think there's going to be a little bit of upsets this weekend. There's going to be some surprises, and we're going to have, for sure, some new Olympia qualified athletes going to the weekend. So first off, going over to the Shuru Classic in India, we have some good throwdowns going on down there. People that have been chasing their Olympia qualification this year. So the most relevant ones is going to be Alison Testu versus Alessia Facine. I think that one's going to be a real throwdown there. Alison's been in the Olympia the last few years. Alessia has been in the Olympia the last few years. Alison has been there before. She's trying to come back. She's been doing really good this season. I do think if I'm going to put a favorite in this one, I am going to put a favorite as Alison winning the Shuru Classic. So when she's competing in America and it's a really deep level of competition, she's still doing really good. She's been beating out people higher that have been beating out Alessia. So I do think that Alison has a slight edge going into this show. So look for her at the Shuru Classic this weekend. I think that she's got a really strong chance at winning this one. Now, moving on to the Mile High. Now, as I've said earlier, Mile High has been a show that Ashley's been at since the very beginning of the Mile High, which was 2018, the first pro show. She's won it almost every single year since she's done it. That is one of her go-to shows. And of course, Ashley's a heavy hitter. When she announces a show way in advance, I do think it has impact on that show and how many numbers are going to be there and who actually shows up to that show. So Ashley is definitely going to be a strong favorite in this show, but it is not going to be an easy task. Ashley went against Kate over in Hawaii this year, and that was a throwdown in Hawaii. She did win with the perfect score, but Kate is no easy person to beat. She looks awesome. Who knows how much she's improved since then? That was towards the end of last year, so she's had a full 8-ish months to get ready for this show. Let's see how improved she is, but I do think that's where the battle is going to be. Now, moving on to the DC Pro. Now, things are going to get a little bit more interesting at the DC Pro this weekend. We have ourselves, this one's a real throwdown. So we're looking for some Olympia qualifications of people who do not have their Olympia qualification. You don't have any dominant competitors in there that you can look at and be like, oh, she's already got one Olympia qualification. She's for sure going to win. We have people that are fighting for their Olympia qualification. And that is what this weekend is going to be all about, people fighting and getting in that Olympia spot. So who's going to be fighting it out for this Olympia qualification? It's going to be a throwdown. So first off, we have Masa, who's coming back. So Masa is a former Olympian. She's coming back. We haven't seen her in a little while. I think it's been 2 years since she's been competing, but she's been still staying in great shape. I've been seeing her on Instagram, post pictures and whatnot, and she still looks in fantastic shape. I'm excited to see what improvements she's made. She actually didn't really need to make a lot of improvements. She's a very tall competitor, but a very full competitor, always brings a crazy level of conditioning in. And I think with her physique now, it really lines up with what they've been awarding in bikini. So I'm curious to see how she's going to be doing in this competition. Definitely one of the favorites for that first call out. Then you have Yulia, who's always the first call out, always doing great, was an Olympian last year. She's chasing her Olympia qualification again this year. It hasn't been as easy as last year's spot. She did really well last year. She was dominating, doing really good with shows, but she's been a little bit in that. She's been in that first call out, but towards the bottom of that first call out, maybe early second call out throughout the shows this year. But at this level of competition, I think that she has a real shot at being in that 1 and 2 spot here. But before she gets there, you have Marie Eve, who's also been throwing down this year, got a second place to Ashley, got a second. I think she got 2 second places this year. So she's been off, I think, by 1 spot twice. I would say going into this show, Marie is going to be one of the favorites. Probably the strongest favorite out of everyone in this lineup. But before I make it easy for Valeria, who just got off a show this weekend, who got third at Nevada State, which I'm actually going to dive into her physique, also is going to be a real contender for that, and as well as Tara Grier. So this show is going to be the one to look at. Oh, and one more I didn't mention is Huynh, who will also be in this show too. So this first call out is going to be all of similar level athletes, similar level competitors, all going for that Olympia qualification. So there is no clear winner. If I'm going to have to pick a winner out of those, I'm going to go with Marie Eve, and then second from that, the second person who I think could get that spot is going to be Valeria. I think you're going to have a 1 and 2 split there, but again, these competitors are all within range of each other, and that can go one of many different ways, especially in bikini. Now, in our other throwdown this weekend, we have the Toronto Pro Show. The Toronto Pro Show is going to be, again, another similar level show. You don't have a dominant Olympia competitor there who is, winning top fives at the Olympias and winning a bunch of pro shows. You have one Olympian there, which is Alice. And Alice, of course, being a former Olympian, would be one of the favorites, but she won her pro show overseas, not against mostly American competitors, which of course is a higher level. So we'll see how she does in the American market. But we have quite a few athletes in this show. And I do think that we have one that a lot of people aren't really familiar with that's going to be one of the favorites in this show, who is Maxine. Maxine got second to Ashley at the Vancouver Pro last year. We haven't seen her since she got second to Ashley at last year's Vancouver Pro. She has made a lot of improvements since then. I've been seeing pictures of her lately. She looks really, really good. So looking at her, we also have Kimberly, of course, my wife, Kimberly Bonilla, who will be there. She's been getting first call outs all year with as high as a third place and a fifth place, getting first call outs, I think, in 4 shows this year. So of course, will be a contender for that first call out, possibly in that top 3 lineup, battling it out with Alice and Maxine. Now, that show is going to be a real throwdown looking at who's going there. So it's going to be a real fun weekend. I'm going to be jumping into some analysis next week. Sorry, I've been away a little bit from doing these analysis. We've been moving and contractors, and I'm flying into the Mile High this weekend. I was at show to show every weekend. But speaking of which, this last weekend, I got to stay home in Nevada because we were at the Nevada State Championships, and we have ourselves an analysis to jump into of the Nevada State Championships. So in Nevada State, we had Ashley, we had Sierra, Valeria, and my client, Yume, who was in from Japan, taking that 1st through 4th spot. So this was a really interesting show. This is one of those rare shows where first place was very clearly defined, and the real battle was between 2nd, 3rd, and 4th place. But the battle between 2nd place, who was going to get 2nd place, was all over the place. The judges are having a really hard time with who was going to get 2nd. There was an argument for all of them to get that 2nd place spot. That's how crazy it was between the 2nd through 4th places. So let's go ahead and jump into that analysis now. So first off, of course, we have Ashley. Looking at Ashley in this show, looked really, really good in this show. This is one of the better packages Ashley's been bringing. She's been bringing a more full physique, a great lean physique with her classic Ashley conditioning. But the thing that you're seeing about Ashley this year, she's a little bit fuller. She hasn't been as tight as she normally has been as you've seen her, because she's coming in a little bit fuller. Her shoulders look great. Her balance is perfect, and she is looking really, really good. A strong contender for this year in any show that she does. I would put her, of course, as a favorite in the Mile High, especially with how she's looking. The judges saw her when they basically said, okay, who are we putting in 2nd place? And that's where the battle was. So how does she edge out Sierra, Valeria, and Yume? Let's go ahead and dive into that. So the battle really came down to Sierra and Valeria for 2nd place. At one point, they were looking at Yume as well, but she has a little bit more improvements to make from the back, and I'm going to go into that too. So where was the difference between Sierra and for Valeria? So looking at Valeria from the front, incredible physique, incredible lines. Now, the thing about Valeria, she's a tall physique. She does have high lats. And if you look at Valeria and how she's built, you could see that she's got just a crazy shoulder width, crazy lats, and structurally she's awesome. But structurally up top is a little bit kind of figure-esque in terms of her physique. It's a little bit more going to the lines of figure. Real high lats, small waist, wide shoulders, but her hips don't pop out in that 3D hip. It doesn't have those rounding of the hips, doesn't have that full hourglass shape. She is more impressive with her physique. And that's one of the things is her lines are so good from the top up and from that front pose, but from the back, not as strong because she doesn't have those 3D glutes, the roundness, a little bit more straight from the lats down, a little bit more of a straight up and down physique. Now, Sierra is the opposite of that. She's got more curving to her physique. And I do think that's what edged it out for her is just the overall structure. From the front pose, it is going to be hard to give it to anyone. It's hard to not give it to Valeria. From the front pose, I have Valeria and they had Yume right there. And actually the judges were saying that with Yume and Valeria, they were having a real hard time between second place with Yume's physique. They said actually from the front that Yume was one of the stronger contenders, probably one of the closest to Ashley in that show from the front. The balance was perfect. There wasn't too much conditioning on her legs. Her lats looked good. She had great balance from upper to lower body. So they were really happy to see her with her conditioning. Now, the problem that you ran into with Valeria is Valeria has some really defined legs. Her legs are just a little bit too striated, a little bit dense, and really conditioned in her legs. Now, her upper body from here up is not crazy conditioned. It's right on where it should be for bikini. But from the lower body down, or from the waist down, her legs are just a little too conditioned and she needs more overall shape to those hips too. So that's where she's going to run into the issue. You're running into body fat distribution issues of her storing less body fat on her legs than she does on her upper body. So how do you do that? How do you correct the upper body and make that just as hard as the lower body when someone has naturally just a different level of body fat distribution on her lower body? She's just leaner on her lower body than on her upper body. It creates some problems in bikini. Now, looking over at Sierra from the front, now Sierra is a two-time Olympian. She's been doing great. She's gotten second place in her last two shows. But Sierra lacks a little bit of density from the back, and I think that's really what hurt her in this one. I think that's going to be when she's against higher level competitors, the density in her glutes is really what hurts her, and you can see it in the walk specifically. You can see it in the walk. You can see it in the transitions. Not when she's set up, but in the transitions and in the walk, you can really see it. The density just needs a little bit more. Now, Sierra has a very powerful structure. She's a very muscular competitor, a big competitor, more of a medium build to her. She'd be kind of more built similarly to like a Brittany Hamilton in terms of the overall, just the size, right? Just a little bit bigger of a competitor. But again, bikini is for everyone. There's not a strict structure on it. But with that, she has to be careful with how big she gets, just like Brittany has to be careful with how big she gets. Now, she's not giving, she used to be, when I saw her a couple years back, her arms were really, really powerful, and it didn't look bikini to me at all. But she's really toned it down, has done a great job with it. Her arms are still a little powerful. I'm sure that's just something that's genetic. It's not going to be easy to just get rid of, more arms. But when you have an arm that is really muscular, it does take away from the shoulder line. You don't see the shoulder capping as much when you have a really big arm. So she's done a lot better job with that. You're seeing a great hourglass shape from here. But I do want to see more glute profile. When you see her from this glute, you want to see more glute profile. You want to see more rounding. When you look at Ashley next to her, you see how round and full Ashley is. You still see the round hamstrings that Ashley has from this front pose, but you're not seeing that from Sierra. The roundness of the hamstring is just showing just a tiny bit. That glute, I think she can twist it over a little bit more and show more of that hourglass shape. I think it would help her quite a bit. So now going into the back, this is what really separated everyone. This show really was a battle of the backs, if you want to call it. Now, when you put Ashley in the mix, it was pretty much a game over from the back. She's one of the best from the back in the whole league. You got like 4 girls on her level from the back in the entire world. So you put her in a lineup that's anything less than the top 10 from the back, it's just pretty much game over in most shows. And in this show, it was that as soon as she turned around, it was like, okay, who's second place? We need to figure out who second place is. It was pretty much that obvious. So won't go too much into Ashley, but I mean, if you can look at Ashley for right now, just the balance, just the fullness and the density of her glutes, the tie-ins are there without being full etched tie-ins. You're not seeing too much V in the adductors. You're not seeing separation in the hamstrings, and it's just great fullness, great balance from upper to lower body. You see the hourglass shape and the hourglass shape that they're looking for with the nice taper. So let's go ahead and jump into Sierra versus Valeria first in this competition. So this is where things really got tricky for the judges. They had to move them around. They really did move them around a lot at this show. second to third to fourth to second to third to fourth. They were jumping all over the place at this one because it is not the easiest thing to figure out who goes where. So first off, I think that Valeria at one point was winning. I think from the front, Valeria had the strongest chance at winning or being second place. I wouldn't say winning. I'm sorry. Was in second place. I think Valeria at one point had the second place kind of nod. The problem with Valeria is, again, her leg conditioning comes in way too crazy. When we look at Valeria, look at her hamstrings. Look at that detail. It is just so much. I mean, you're seeing the tendons here. You're seeing a deep V in the adductor. You're seeing separation lines in the hamstrings. Of course, the tie-ins look great. They're etched full tie-ins. But when you see all this detail, and you're in front of someone who's like a Sandy who sees that and can pick it up just like that, they're going to say, hey, that's too much. You're too lean. We can't reward that in bikini. We do not want to go with that in bikini, right? But you ran into problems with the other people. So it wasn't just such an easy thing to do. So from the front, Valeria was pretty much, I think she had second place locked in, but from the back, she was like fourth place. So she averaged out to third, I think is what happened there. Because from the front, she was killing it. She was looking great. Now, when we go over to Yume, now Yume is a little bit of a different issue. So Yume, her conditioning was great. The judges said, hey, her conditioning is perfect. We don't want to change her conditioning. But with Yume, she needs just a little bit more density to the glutes. You can see the overall hardness of the glutes needs just a little bit more density. So she's going to take off a few weeks and she's going to come in a little bit denser. We'll see what show she ends up doing. We're looking at a couple different options for her. But great job for her at our first show in America in 2024, getting a fourth place next to 3 Olympians. She was the only one that wasn't an Olympian, and she got placed. The only people that beat her were Olympians at this show. So great potential for Yume. But yes, she has really, really good structure. She has great hip width. When we talk about hourglass shape, upper fullness to the glute, roundness to the glute, just needs more density to the outer edges of her glute, more fullness to the outer edges of the glute, and just more hardness to the glute, more density, more muscle maturity. But it's right there. She's inches away. We're hoping that she can get it this year. That's the only thing holding her back. The judges said, hey, if she had more density to her glutes, we would have had her in second place, no problem. From the front, she was already in second place to some of the judges, but from the back, her density was just lacking behind everyone else's. But there was nothing else to really fix on her, is just get that density right for Yume. So huge potential. I do think she's capable of getting an Olympia qualification in the right scenario this year. Now, going over to Sierra, what does Sierra got to do to repeat and get another Olympia qualification? So looking at Sierra from the back, there was just a couple things that she needed to work on. And this is where it came down to her versus Valeria, and where they kept going back and forth. Because who do you give it to? You have Valeria, who is too tight, too detailed, too dense in the front of the quads with separation lines, striations down the quad. Not as much of an hourglass shape, a little bit more straight down from the lats. So the lats, really high lats, really good shoulders, but from the waist down, a little bit more straight up and down, not so hourglassy, right? So who do you give it to? Do you give it to someone who is more hourglass shape, more fullness to the upper outer edge of the glute, where the conditioning was right on the hamstrings, but the conditioning on the lower glute area, in this area here, was a little bit soft, and then you could see the density just wasn't quite there yet. You could see it was just a little bit soft in that walk. When she took that walk, her glutes didn't stay round and full when she walked. You could see them moving her back and forth between Valeria and between Sierra, switching spots back and forth, because the argument is Valeria had the density and had the fullness and stayed full during the walk. Sierra didn't, but she had the better shape and the better conditioning. So who do you give it to, right? There was a point where they were arguing with Yume, getting Yume in there too, but the density just wasn't there. So it was a very tough battle between who got second place. Ended up being Ashley first place, Sierra second, Valeria third, and Yume fourth. I think there's an argument for any direction of those to travel. I think it could have went any different way. So tough one for the judges for that second place. The first place I think was easy. It was a perfect score. But that second, third, and fourth place was really tough. Now, going over to Miami. Now, I'm sorry, guys, in advance. We don't have a lot of pictures in Miami. And these pictures, of course, the other ones as well, all courtesy of NPC News Online, who always does great coverage. At this show, I think they just didn't get as many pictures. They had just a front shot. I couldn't get backs of everyone. There's only one competitor that had a full back shot. So I can't go into the deep analysis there, but I do want to give credit where credit is due. So looking at your winners, one thing I did want to say too is India's been looking really, really good this year. I think that she's going to be a contender to get back into the Olympia. I don't think that's going to be an issue for her getting back into the Olympia. I was hoping to see her on a list this weekend. I don't know why she would do the Miami show and then not jump into a show while she's got second place and was doing good already. But hey, it is what it is. So we had some real contenders. We also saw Brittany back in the top 5, which we love seeing Brittany. Again, we talked about Brittany a little earlier, one of the more muscular competitors. But again, bikini is for everyone. Bikini could be a bigger structure with a little bit more muscle, a taller structure. You get people like Kimber, who's taller, is going to need a little bit more muscle to fill out that frame. You have a Masa, who's a little bit taller as well. I think Masa might be 6 foot, maybe 6 foot, over 6 foot. Valeria as well, where they have to fill out their frame a little bit more. And Brittany is one of those structures that's going to have a little bit more muscle. But seeing her in the top 4, love seeing her there again. I think she got top 5 at the Wasatch as well. So she's been doing great this year. I expect to see all these competitors in the Olympia. But congratulations to the winners here of getting into the Olympia. So really happy to see that. And anyway, guys, this was a long overdue one. I moved right next door to the gym now. I am just a few houses down, so expect me to be viewing even more videos back again. Sorry for the break, but it's been crazy moving these last few weeks. I missed a lot, but I'll be back this next week. I will be jumping into probably all the winners of the next shows. 4 shows, I probably won't be going into deep analysis of everyone, maybe the top 2. I guess leave it in the comments what you guys want to see next week from these 4 shows, these throwdowns, and the newly Olympia qualified athletes that I'm sure are going to be some upsets over the weekend. So thank you guys as always for tuning in. I appreciate it. Leave what you want to see in the comments below. As always, worldwide online contest prep with me at teamelitephysique.com. Thank you, Nebius, for sponsoring this, and Muscle Egg. I'll talk to you guys later.